A very warm good morning to all of you. You're watching Breakfast Show this morning. I'm Preeti. With me is Nancy. This is DD India. And up next for the 1 hour, we'll get you everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national updates. We'll get you international updates. We'll get you sports updates and updates from the world of business as well. A web review also. So enough there to keep you packed and to keep you busy, occupied with us for the next 1 hour to make sure that your tea or coffee right in the morning tastes even better.
Absolutely, yes. Over the next 1 hour, we'll get you all the news from across the nation, international sports and business updates. And we'll in fact also be telling you more about the India's vaccine Maitri initiative and how India is at the forefront of fight against COVID. How really, India has been at the forefront to fighting the global pandemic, not only in the country helping own citizens, but also in fact all the countries in and around the world. We'll get you all the details on that. Also, we'll get you updates on Foreign Secretary's visit to Russia. We'll get you all the updates on that as well. And the important Quad Foreign Ministers meeting that will take place today. All that and much more in the next 1 hour. Stay with us. Let's begin with the headlines.
Taking forward India's vaccine Maitri initiative, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar announces India's gift of 2 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine for all the UN peacekeepers.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says India has been at the forefront of global fight against COVID-19 pandemic and provided critical medicines, diagnostic kits, ventilators and PPEs to over 150 countries. Addressing the UNSC open debate, stressing concern about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic globally, especially in the conflict-affected regions, the minister says, today the pharmacy of the world is stepping forward to meet the global vaccine challenge.
Foreign Secretary Vardhan Shringla holds discussions with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. Says issues like cooperation in the UNSC, Afghanistan and COVID-19 vaccines and global response to the pandemic were discussed.
The third India, Australia, Japan, USA foreign minister level meeting to be held today. The Quad ministers to exchange views on regional and global issues, especially practical areas of cooperation towards maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. The leaders to also discuss ongoing efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, global climate change and other issues of mutual interest.
NASA's Mars rover Perseverance prepares for a landing attempt on the red planet today. Rover heads for a touchdown inside a vast basin called Jericho crater. The main objective of the mission is to search for signs of microbial organisms that may have existed on Mars around 3 billion years ago.
News from back home, Prime Minister Modi to launch Mahabahu Brahmaputra and lay the foundation stone of 2 bridges in Assam today via video conferencing. The projects to give impetus to infrastructural push in the northeastern state, paving the way for overall development.
Prime Minister's Principal Secretary holds high-level meeting to review progress of nationwide COVID vaccination drive. Around 92 lakh health and frontline workers inoculated so far. India stands third after US and Britain in terms of the number of people vaccinated.
In sports news, top seed Novak Djokovic to take on Russian Aslan Kartasev in men's singles semi-finals in the Australian Open today. In the women's singles category, Serena Williams to lock horns with Japanese Naomi Osaka in the semi-finals.
All right, those were the top stories we're tracking this hour. Up next, we get to news in detail. We begin with national headlines first.
Absolutely. And talking about India's vaccine Maitri initiative, which is being taken forward now. In fact, India has offered COVID-19 vaccine to all the UN peacekeepers around the world. And speaking at the UNSC meeting on the COVID-19 pandemic and the conflict zones, External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar has announced that India will give 2 lakh doses for all the UN peacekeepers.
Keeping in mind the UN peacekeepers who operate in such difficult circumstances, we would like to announce today a gift of 200,000 doses for them as well. We are working actively with Gavi, WHO, and ACT Accelerator. Our contribution has also supported the SARS-COVID-19 emergency.
Addressing the UNSC's open debate on implementation of Resolution 2532 of 2020, the External Affairs Minister said that India has been at the forefront of the global fight against COVID-19 pandemic. He reiterated India's effort in providing medicines, PPE kits to over 150 countries. He also said that 30 vaccine candidates are under various stages of development.
India has been very much at the forefront of this global fight against COVID-19 pandemic. We had earlier provided critical medicines, diagnostic kits, ventilators, and PPEs to more than 150 countries, about 80 of them on a grant basis. Today, the pharmacy of the world is stepping forward to meet the global vaccines challenge. 2 vaccines, including one indigenously developed, have already been granted emergency authorization. Additionally, as many as 30 candidates are under various stages of development.
Dr. Jaishankar also said that India is providing vaccines to the world under Vaccine Maitri. He added that 49 more countries will receive vaccines in the coming days.
Under the initiative of Vaccine Maitri, which translates into vaccine friendship, India provides vaccines to the world. We are, of course, a significant source of supply to the COVAX facility. But in addition, India is also directly sending vaccines to our friends and partners. Starting with our immediate neighbors, 25 nations across the world have already received Made in India vaccines. 49 more countries will be supplied in the coming days, ranging from Europe, North America, Latin America, the Caribbean, to Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands.
Stressing on the concern about devastating impact of COVID-19 pandemic globally, especially in the conflict-affected regions, the External Affairs Minister said that today the pharmacy of the world is stepping forward to meet the global vaccine challenge.
As we assess the impact of the pandemic and the prospects of recovery, including through the availability of vaccines, there are 5 concerns that India would like to share. 1, lack of global coordination regarding vaccine distribution will hit conflict-affected areas and poorer countries hardest. The ICRC estimates that more than 60 million people in such areas are at risk. 2, there currently exists a glaring disparity in accessibility of vaccines globally. Equity in access to vaccines is important for mitigating the impact of the pandemic. 3, this disparity calls for cooperation within the framework of COVAX, which is trying to secure adequate vaccine doses for the world's poorest nations. 4, from an economic standpoint, the costs of inequitable vaccine distribution are truly massive. The International Chamber of Commerce predicts that the global economy stands to lose as much as $9.2 trillion if the international community fails to address vaccine inequity. And 5, routine immunization programs have been thrown into disarray. Due to the pandemic, about 80 million children in at least 68 countries are at risk of diphtheria, measles, and polio.
And moving on now, the Foreign Secretary Vardhan Shringla is in Moscow on a 2-day visit. He had a successful meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. They discussed the wide-ranging, special and privileged strategic partnership between India and Russia and the ways to further strengthen it. The Foreign Secretary also conveyed greetings of the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. The discussions on bilateral issues, cooperation in global issues of mutual interest were held. Foreign Secretary also said that the issues of cooperation in the UNSC, Afghanistan and COVID-19 vaccines and the global response to the pandemic were also discussed.
With the Foreign Minister, we discussed some regional and international issues of interest, including our cooperation in the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council, where India is a non-permanent member now. We also spoke about issues like Afghanistan, which both countries have a very, very direct interest in. And on the whole, I think the issue of cooperation in the area of vaccines, global responses to COVID-19, and how India and Russia can work together in partnership to deal with this issue was also discussed.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet virtually today with his counterparts from Japan, Australia and India in the Quad meeting, that is the formal meeting. And this is a grouping seen as part of efforts to balance China's growth, military and economic power. The meeting, announced by State Department spokesman Ned Price at a regular briefing on Wednesday, will be the first of the informal group under the Biden administration that took office on January 20th.
This administration has made clear that the United States values our alliances and will work with our partners and friends around the world to pursue common interests across the globe. I'm pleased to announce that tomorrow morning, Secretary Blinken and his counterparts from Japan, Australia, and India will speak together, the Quad, as it's known. And this discussion with the Quad foreign ministers is critical to advancing our shared goals of a free and open Indo-Pacific and rising to the defining challenges of our time, including coordinating our efforts on COVID-19 response, as well as climate change.
All right, to get us more on that, our correspondent Abhishek Jha is joining us. Abhishek, this Quad meeting takes place at a, this is the first meeting to happen after the Biden government took office in the US on January 20th. I would want you to elaborate what, how is the Quad to function from here on, given this change in the leadership in the US, and what all is to be taken up today.
Okay, so Maripriti, it seems that with this early initiative of holding a Quad meeting from the Biden administration, it's a clear message that the foreign policy change, the stance of the earlier government are being the same momentum will be carried in this new dispensation. Also, the last Quad foreign ministers meeting was held in Tokyo in the last October sometimes in October. So it's less than 5 months, and the next round of foreign ministers meeting is being held. And this tells the significance all the four nations, India, Australia, Japan and United States of America are putting into this effort. In fact, there has been indication that the USA wants to formalize this grouping, because so far this grouping, which was kind of came into existence after the tsunami had happened, and ever since it was mostly regarding humanitarian and other aspects and multilateral relations. But gradually, like in the recent years, it has become a balancing force in the Indo-Pacific region, especially when we have noticed the growing influence of China in terms of economy and strategic and defense globally. So in that context, this meeting holds significance, because all the nations, India, the Quad nations want that not only there should be a balance in the Indo-Pacific, but it should also be an open, free system where every country who has commercial and strategic interests can operate securely without being intimidated or without being dominated unduly by any other members, especially hinting at China's growing influence in that region.
All right, Abhishek, that is about the Quad meeting that will take place today. Let's also focus on the Foreign Secretary's visit to Moscow, the ongoing visit. And, the Foreign Secretary has had productive, fruitful discussions with the top diplomats in Moscow. And, of course, he said that one can expect developments to take place in the India-Russia ties, and further momentum can be added through this visit. What can we expect, what achievements can we expect through this visit of the Foreign Secretary?
So, morning, Nancy. It seems that India and Russia, who has been close friend and partners in terms of defense and strategic affairs over the last few decades, they want to continue with the momentum. And as far as this latest round of visit of Foreign Secretary Shringla is concerned, this visit is also being seen as a precursor to the larger bilateral summit that is going to happen between India and Russia, because the last summit could not take place in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic. So this year, Russian President Putin is going to travel to India, where he'll be meeting Prime Minister Modi, and both sides will be discussing the areas of mutual interest, bilateral interest, and globally important issues. So while Shringla will be giving a push to the already strong relationship, there are other gamuts of relationship also that needs to be discussed. That is bilateral cooperation in terms of trade.
Right.
And also in terms of global order, both the countries have advocated a rule-based world order. And our Foreign Secretary has also mentioned that a multipolar world cannot be imagined without being recognized the force of India and Russia. So when we talk about a world where the unipolarity would not exist, and all the countries may have their exercise, may have their interests addressed, almost equally, that needs to acknowledge the importance of India as a force that has come into existence in the last few years, and Russia, which has already been there. So these were the important aspects of Foreign Secretary's visit to Moscow.
All right. Also, Abhishek, I would want you to very quickly put in a word for the comments which have been coming in from the External Affairs Minister, when he talks of and when he appreciates Vaccine Maitri initiative of the country in helping out the other countries in distress in these times of COVID pandemic.
So, Preeti, of course, India, which globally is not recognized as a top economic power, because of now, though it has become a huge market for the interests of investors globally. But nobody had imagined that at a time when the COVID pandemic, the world will be put down forcefully by this pandemic, India would emerge as a solution provider of this pandemic. And it has happened that India, with its decades of capacity that holds almost 60 to 70% of global vaccine supply, and its supply chain experience, its expertise in vaccine production and its handling, has emerged as one of the key solution provider to this COVID pandemic. India, with its Vaccine Maitri project, has supplied the COVID vaccines to many of its friend and partner countries, free also, as a gift also, and now commercially also this vaccine is being supplied. But still, the major concern remains that almost over 100 countries in the world has still not got a single shot of vaccine. And how to not only scale up the production, but also to ensure that the access of this vaccine are democratically given to all the countries who cannot even afford these vaccines. This is a major concern that Foreign Minister has also expressed at his United Nations forum. And India has been a key provider to this vaccine, and India wants that even under the COVAX, which is a WHO-led initiative, every country in the world should democratically get this vaccine at an affordable and quick response mechanism.
All right, Abhishek, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Abhishek Jha, spelling out more details on the international headlines which we were tracking. He spoke on the comments which have been coming in from the External Affairs Minister on vaccine.
And also the Foreign Secretary's visit to Moscow, and of course the Quad meeting that will take place today. Let's now move on and get you more news from back home.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will today launch the Mahabahu Brahmaputra lay the foundation stone of Dhubri Fulbari Bridge and perform Bhumi Pujan for construction of Majuli Bridge in Assam via video conferencing. The launch of Mahabahu Brahmaputra will be marked by inauguration of the RoPax vessel operations between Niyamati Majuli Island, North Guwahati, South Guwahati and Dhubri Hatsingimari. RoPax services will help in reducing travel time by providing connectivity between banks and thus reducing the distance to be travelled by road. To promote river cruise tourism and generate local employment, Prime Minister will lay foundation stone for construction of tourist jetties at 4 locations. A permanent inland water transport terminal will also be built at Jogi Ghopa under the program. Added to that, to further promote ease of doing business, Prime Minister Modi will also launch 2 e-portals. Cargo Data Portal will collate cargo and cruise data on a real-time basis. portal for asset and navigation information will act as a one-stop solution for providing information about river navigation and infrastructure. Prime Minister will also lay foundation stone for 4-lane bridge over Brahmaputra between Dhubri and Fulbari. The proposed bridge will be located on NH 127B and will connect Dhubri in Assam to Fulbari, Tura, Rongram and Rongjeng in Meghalaya. He will also perform Bhumi Pujan for Majuli 2-lane bridge on the Brahmaputra between Majuli and Jorhat, and this bridge will be located on NH 715K and will connect Niyamati Ghat and Kamalabari. To get us more on that, our correspondent Arun is joining us. Arun, an important day ahead for Assam today. Several gifts to be offered by the Prime Minister. Let's talk first about how infrastructure will be boosted in the state when we talk of Prime Minister laying the foundation stone of Dhubri-Fulbari Bridge, and he will also perform the Bhumi Pujan for construction of Majuli Bridge in Assam. Talk more about it first. Arun, are we audible to you?
Arun, if you could hear us, we are asking about, the many projects that will be unveiled today, of course, aimed at the holistic development of Northeast Assam. That's clearly been the topmost priority of the government, developing Northeast. And through these projects, once again today, the infrastructural push, will be given, the connectivity will be boosted, and how the ease of doing business is also going to be further enhanced.
Good morning, Preeti and Nancy, and absolutely, indeed, it's a significant day for the people of Assam. We know this fact that today, these projects, the inauguration part and of course the laying of the foundation stone part, also ensures that how connectivity can be given a major push in Assam. Now, we know this fact that RoPax services will be started as far as in major portion of Assam. The north of Guwahati will come closer to the south of Guwahati. When we talk about Niyamati and the Majuli Islands, as of now, the distance between these 2 points is 420 kilometers. Now, after the start of the RoPax services, the distance of this 420 kilometers will be reduced to mere 12 kilometers. When we talk about the North Guwahati and South Guwahati, when the RoPax services start between the South Guwahati and North Guwahati, the distance between these 2 points will reduce from 40 kilometers to only 3 kilometers. And when we talk about Dhubri and Hati Singh Madi, these are the crucial and important points as far as Assam is concerned. As of now, the distance between these 2 points is close to 220 kilometers. And after the start of the RoPax services, the distance will come down to mere 28 kilometers. So this shows the fact that how RoPax services will play a crucial and important role in bringing the people of the northern part of the Guwahati and southern part of the Guwahati closer to each other.
Right.
Apart from this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also going to launch 2 important e-portals which will give a major push to the ease of doing business.
Sure.
One is Cardi to track the movement of the cargo, to take the data of the cargo movement, and second is Pani. That means portal for accessing and navigation information. Now, these asset navigation information is very much important as far as the data is concerned, as far as tracking the movement of cargo ships and various other navigating objects are concerned. So this will also provide ease of doing business as far as the water economy, the blue economy is concerned. So indeed, it's an important day as far as water infrastructure, the blue economy is concerned, and it will also provide ease to the people because travel time will be cut down massively. The 420 kilometers, the Niyamati Majuli Islands, this distance will come down to only 12 kilometers, and this means a lot to the people of Assam because from decades they were demanding for these kind of RoPax services and the bridges, which will fulfill today.
Absolutely, and these are the various development activities taking place for the people, around the river Brahmaputra and river Barak as well, and how this will really lead to, a push further to employment there among the local people, and also, in fact, generate growth there in the region.
So absolutely, because the bridges will, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also will also lay the foundation stone of 2 important bridges.
Sure.
On one side, this bridge, the 4-lane bridge, that is Dhubri and of course the Fulbari bridge. This bridge will bring the people of Assam and Meghalaya closer to each other. The travel time will reduce. So now the people of North Guwahati primarily can take up job in south of Guwahati, and of course the religious tourism will also get a major push. And we know this fact, 4 jetties will also be created as far as these projects are concerned.
Right.
The Prime Minister Narendra Modi will again be inaugurating these 4 jetty points. one in Niyamati, second in Vishwanath Ghat, third in Pandu, and last but not the least, the jetty point will be created in the Jogi Gupa.
Right.
So these jetty points will play an important role in giving a major push to the cruise tourism in Assam, and of course on the river Brahmaputra. So yes, as and when the infrastructure is gearing up and becoming ready in Assam, it will create jobs for the local people in Assam. Number one, infrastructure will get a major push. Third, the connectivity issues will be sorted out because of the fact that travel time, which used to take earlier, will be reduced massively, and people can take up travel to the other places of Assam, where they can take up the jobs. The college-going students, the students primarily, their travel time will cut down, and of course, job creation opportunity, big market is waiting for them because the Assam, is getting closer to each other. The southern part of Guwahati, the northern part of Guwahati, they'll come closer to each other, and indeed, that's the reason it's a significant day for the people of Assam.
All right, significant day for the people of Assam there. Thank you so much, Arun, for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Arun telling us more about different projects which are to be inaugurated, and the foundation stone will be laid by the Prime Minister today. Through the day, we'll keep you updated. So it's a big day there. Infrastructure will be revamped in Assam.
Absolutely. We'll keep focusing on that, but moving on now to some other news for the time being. Prime Minister Modi spoke with His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, the Sultan of Oman, over telephone yesterday. His Majesty the Sultan expressed his appreciation for the COVID-19 vaccine supplied by India to Oman. The leaders agreed to maintain close cooperation in the joint fight against the pandemic. Prime Minister Modi congratulated the Sultan on the completion of 1 year of his reign and for his vision 2040 for Oman. Both the leaders also expressed satisfaction about the growing India-Oman cooperation in all areas including defense, health, trade and investment. Both the leaders also appreciated the role of the Indian diaspora in enhancing the economic and the cultural ties between the two strategic partners.
And the Ministry of Civil Aviation has announced updated guidelines for international passengers coming to India in view of the rising cases of the mutant strain of COVID-19 in India. The new SOP will be in effect from 22nd of February midnight. All incoming international travelers or transiting through flights originating from United Kingdom, Europe and Middle East should make sure that they follow the new guidelines. Now up next on your screens we have the SOP for international passengers. Now, the travellers have to submit self-declaration form online on Air Suvidha portal, that is the New Delhi Airport.in, and this should happen before the scheduled travel. Travellers also have to upload negative COVID-19 RT-PCR report. Added to that, flyers should get COVID-19 test within 72 hours prior to the travel. Passengers will also have to submit self-declaration with regard to any symptoms of the COVID-19 virus. Travellers should give undertaking on the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India portal before the journey. The passengers coming to India will have to undergo home quarantine or self-monitoring of health for 14 days or as warranted. Arrival in India without negative report shall be allowed only to those in exigency or of a death in the family. Also, the Ministry has put forth some do's and don'ts before boarding, and these do's and don'ts will be provided along with a ticket by airlines agencies concerned. Only those who have filled in the self-declaration form on Air Suvidha portal and a negative RT-PCR test report has been submitted, only they will be allowed to board the flights. Asymptomatic travellers will be allowed to board after thermal screening. Arogya Setu app has to be downloaded on the mobile phones of the passengers. Passengers need to follow physical distancing all through their travel. Also, up next on your screens we have some SOPs which have been put forth by the Ministry during travel. Announcement made at the airports, in flight and during transit about COVID-19 has to be followed. In flight, the passengers will have to wear masks all the time. Flyers, airline staff, crew and members to observe environmental hygiene, respiratory hygiene and hand hygiene. On arrival, Physical distancing has to be ensured. Thermal screening should be done by health officials present at the airport. Self-declaration form filled online has to be shown to the airport health staff. Symptomatic passengers to be isolated and taken to a medical facility.
And let's now move on, take a look at all the updates on COVID-19 from across the country. While India's total active caseload currently stands at 1.36 lakh. The active caseload now consists of just 1.25% of India's total positive cases. In a significant development, all the states and the union territories have reported a decline in the active cases in the last month. 18 states and union territories have not reported any COVID-19 death in the last 24 hours. While India's cumulative recovery show a progressive increment on a daily basis, it presently stands at 1.06 crore, while the COVID-19 recovery rate in the country has touched 97.33%. The rising recoveries combined with less new cases have ensured a decline in the active caseload.
The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered to healthcare and frontline workers is close to 92 lakh. 91,86,757 vaccine doses were given through 1,98,352 sessions as per the provisional report till 6 p.m. yesterday. Now, these include 61,79,669 healthcare workers who have taken the first dose and 3,42,116 healthcare workers who have taken the second dose, along with 26,64,972 frontline workers who have taken the first dose. While the countrywide vaccination drive was rolled out on 16th of January this year, vaccination for the frontline workers started this month from the 2nd.
Now, Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister chaired a high-level meeting to review in detail the progress of the COVID-19 vaccination drive across the country and the steps to accelerate the pace of the vaccination. The Principal Secretary was briefed about the progress of the countrywide COVID-19 vaccination exercise. It was pointed out that India was the fastest country in the world to cross all the milestones from 1 million to 7 million cumulative vaccinations. There are also plans to scale up the delivery of vaccines. There's also a plan to increase the number of COVID-19 vaccination sites many-fold across the country. While currently 10,000 to 11,000 immunization sessions are being conducted, it is also being planned to scale this 4 to 5 times when the next phase begins. Now, presently, about 2,000 private hospitals are already engaged in the vaccination effort, and as we go ahead, much larger number of private hospitals will be engaged in the COVID-19 vaccination drive. First preference has been accorded to the health workers and the frontline workers in line with the global practice, while next in line will be the 50-plus population and those with comorbid conditions, for whom efforts are also on to start the vaccination process in around 2 to 3 weeks from now.
In other news, Dr. K. Sivan, Chairman ISRO, had a meeting with the new head of Australian Space Agency yesterday and signed an amendment to the existing India-Australia MOU for space cooperation. Both the leaders signed an amendment of the 2012 India-Australia Intergovernmental MOU for cooperation in civil space science, technology and education in the presence of Indian High Commissioner to Australia and Australian High Commissioner to India. Both the leaders have also reviewed the status of ongoing cooperation activities in Earth observation, satellite navigation, space situational awareness and establishment of transportable terminal in Australia to support India's Gaganyaan program.
Now, since the abrogation of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir is witnessing developmental works at the ground level. To observe this change, a delegation of 24 foreign envoys reached Jammu and Kashmir. The diplomats interacted with the locals, took note of the ground level developments, while also praising the DDC elections aimed at strengthening democracy.
In France, Malaysia, Brazil, Italy, Finland, Bangladesh, Cuba, Chile, Portugal, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Sweden, Senegal, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Ireland, Ghana, Estonia, Bolivia, Malawi, Eritrea and Ivory Coast reached the Kashmir Valley amidst tight security arrangements and were given a warm welcome. The delegation met the Mayor of Srinagar, District Development Council head, Block Development Council chairperson and heads of municipal bodies. The delegation also talked to the residents of Budgam district and took note of the grievance redressal system as well as the development of local bodies.
The visiting dignitaries were apprised of the landmark elections that we recently had of the district development councils as well as urban local bodies. They asked pertinent questions, wanted to know the ground realities, and that was shared by them. Elected representatives from all political opinions and all political parties participated. Everybody spoke about their views and constructive suggestions. I think it was a very constructive and positive.
एजाज़ मिला कि हमें इतनी बड़ी फॉरेन डेलीगेट्स के साथ इंटरेक्शन करने का मौका मिला और अपने जो भी यहाँ पर डेवलपमेंट के हवाले से जो स्कीम्स हैं हमारे जो कुछ किया है या जो कुछ करना बाकी है उस हवाले से उनके साथ हमने इंटरेक्शन किया.
The delegation also visited the Hazrat Bal shrine located near the Dal Lake in Srinagar. The efforts of holding elections in a safe and secure environment were lauded by the diplomats.
What we are realizing, let's say so, is that all what was happening the last year and a little more months is that democracy took place here. Clearly, what we can identify is that the local actors, in terms of politics, took their places now at the levels of the district, at the level of the blocks, at the level of the tehsils. It's impressive.
The visit of the delegation took place after the DDC elections. The universities and colleges have also reopened in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Prior to this, 2 delegations of foreign diplomats had visited the valley in August 2019 and again in January and February last year after the abrogation of Article 370. Due to the COVID pandemic, all other visits had to be cancelled. Bureau Report, DD India.
In the latest updates on Uttarakhand disaster, death toll has reached 59 with the body emerging from the rubble at the tunnel site this morning. Search for missing people continues after the inundation in Chamoli district. Debris is being extracted from the main tunnel at Tapawan. Yesterday, the excavation work was stopped till the evening due to waterlogging in the tunnel. Excavation started again after water came out. Out of 59 dead, 31 have been identified, while 27 bodies are unknown. NDRF, SDRF, Army and ITBP personnel are continuously working in search and rescue operations. Apart from Tapawan, temporary bridges are being built for 13 affected villages. Restoration of power supply is also underway. The administration is constantly monitoring the situation.
And after all that national news, let's move on now to our next segment and get you all the news from around the world in across the globe. While NASA's Mars rover Perseverance near the end of its 7-month, 293 million mile journey as it prepares for a daredevil landing attempt on the red planet today. The Perseverance heads for a touchdown inside a vast basin called J0 crater. It's a site of a long-vanished Martian lake bed. The chief objective of the 2-year, $2.7 billion mission is to search for signs of microbial organisms that may have flourished on Mars some 3 billion years ago when the planet was warmer, wetter and presumably more hospitable to life.
Millions of people of Texas braved their 3rd day without heat on Wednesday following a punishing winter storm that has killed at least 21 people. Icy conditions threatened to hamstring the country's 2nd largest state and the surrounding region for days. Some 2.7 million households were without power. According to the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, a cooperative responsible for 90% of the state's electricity, which has come under increasing fire for a massive failure of the power grid. The National Weather Service said that snowfall and ice accumulation would likely end around midday on Wednesday in North Texas, offering some reprieve, although it kept a winter storm warning in effect. President Joe Biden has assured the governors of the states hit hard by storms that the federal government stands ready to offer any emergency resources needed.
Now, Italy's new government won a confidence vote in the 315-seat Senate by 262 to 40 on Wednesday. The Prime Minister, the former head of the European Central Bank, was sworn into the office at the weekend. And as expected, around 15 members of his largest parliamentary partner defied their leadership and voted against Draghi, objecting to a technocrat taking charge and refusing to back a coalition that included all political foes. Now, with a vast parliamentary majority on paper after a confidence vote in the Senate, Draghi looks set to waltz through a similar vote in the lower house today. And this will be the final step needed for the government to exercise its full powers.
Red rivers of lava and plumes of foreign smoke poured from Italy's Mount Etna on Wednesday, Europe's largest, most active volcano. Visuals taken in the Sicilian town of Catania showed cars driving away from the peak as it spewed thick clouds of ash. The 3,330-meter high volcano can burst into spectacular action several times a year on the Mediterranean island. The last major eruption was in 1992.
And the developments taking place in Myanmar, where concerns are growing over the potential for violence in Myanmar as anti-coup protesters urge supporters to take to the streets en masse in defiance of the military generals who have deployed troops in major cities. The number of protesters who marched in the streets on Wednesday, a day after additional charges were pressed against detained leader Aung San Suu Kyi, was the largest seen in Yangon since the military coup over 2 weeks back.
There is political crisis in Myanmar. Opponents of Myanmar's military coup, including celebrities, veteran activists and students, rejected on Wednesday an army assertion that there was public support for overthrowing elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and said their campaign would not burn out. With bonnets up and hazard lights flashing, cars appeared to be broken down across Myanmar's largest city of Yangon. Tens of thousands of demonstrators flooded the streets of Yangon and were joined by celebrities and veteran activists. Their only aim was to block military and police from moving in on protesters. Myanmar's military has charged Aung San Suu Kyi, the country's elected leader, with a second offence, this time under the country's Natural Disaster Management Law. Police filed an additional charge of violating a Natural Disaster Management Law on top of earlier filed charges of illegally importing 6 walkie-talkie radios. Mass protests are being witnessed across Myanmar. Drivers parked their vehicles in the middle of major streets in Myanmar's largest city of Yangon, hoping to block the deployment of armoured military vehicles. A UN envoy has already warned the army of severe consequences for any harsh response to the demonstrations. Recently, the army has given itself extensive search and detention powers, and there have been penal code amendments aimed at stifling dissent with tough prison terms. Despite this, demonstrations have continued in towns across the ethnically diverse country. The civil disobedience movement has been growing with strikes that are crippling many functions of the government. The Nobel Peace Laureate, detained since 1st of February coup, now faces a charge of violating a natural disaster management law, as well as charges of illegally importing 6 walkie-talkie radios. At a hearing by video conference on Tuesday, her next hearing is set for 1st of March. When she will be relieved of all charges remains to be seen. DD India.
Clashes with police in Barcelona erupted amidst protest over jailed rapper. Police have fired tear gas, rubber bullets and sound bombs at thousands of protesters in Madrid the day after a rapper was arrested on charges of glorifying terrorism and insulting royalty in his songs. Protests in the capital's central Plaza de Sol Square were initially peaceful, with people clapping their hands in unison and chanting, but police charged into the crowd, wielding batons after a few protesters began throwing glass bottles and stones that they had loosened from the pavement. Some protesters responded by setting fire to containers to create barricades in the narrow Madrid streets.
And let's now move on, take a look at all the global updates on COVID-19. Well, the tally of COVID-19 cases worldwide has surpassed 11 crore 4,17,380. The total recoveries stand at 8 crore 53,13,081. The deadly virus has claimed over 24,39,778 lives globally. The US still continues to remain the worst affected from COVID-19, where more than 2 crore 84 lakh cases have so far been registered. The country has reported over 5 lakh 2,000 deaths due to COVID-19.
And up next, we get you our segment Web Review, wherein a colleague joins us every day with the details of the headlines which have been put forth in various web portals of social media.
Okay, we have our colleague Arun joining us for the web review. Arun, good morning. Take us through what's making it to the headlines in the World Wide Web.
Indeed, let's begin with the World Wide Web. A lot of news are trending on various social media platforms and, of course, on various newspaper websites. But looking at the first news article, now this is a collation or compilation of various quotes by Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he spoke yesterday, while inaugurating the projects in Tamil Nadu, and he spoke a lot about the energy sector. So he clearly mentioned this point that government is committed to bring natural gas under the GST regime. So it's a big statement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because this move is very much likely to bring down the cost of CNG, PNG, and of course the natural gas primarily lower. So yes, he has mentioned that government is committed to this aspect, and also he has focused on the aspect that he has called for a lot of investment in energy sector. So how he's focusing on the lucrative energy sector. But apart from that, Times of India in this first slide only has done this exclusive news. It says that PM Modi to review the China-Pakistan situation at the military meet. Now, the Times of India is quoting the government sources and telling that the commanders' conference is going to be held in first week of March in Kevadia in Gujarat, whereby Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be giving his vision and also be reviewing the situation at the Pakistan and primarily the China-Pakistan situation, and of course we'll be listening to the top commanders, of our forces, and will also be giving his vision in this new decade to the defense forces and armed forces. So commander conference is likely to be held in the first week of March in Kevadia in Gujarat. So this is the news done by Times of India, and it is also being carried by various other newspapers all across the websites. Let's look at the second important news article from Economic Times. Now, Economic Times says that NPCI gears up for 1 billion transactions per day. We know that the digital transactions are being, picking up on a daily basis, and now NPCI, that means the National Payments Corporation of India, is gearing up for digital infrastructure so that 1 billion digital transactions can be done on daily basis. So they are upgrading the tech infrastructure, the hardware, the IT infrastructure for the UPI, for Aadhaar-enabled payment services, and of course, for various, and of course for IMPS. So these are some of the important tools that we are using on a daily basis for digital transactions. And now NPCI is gearing up and modernizing its infrastructure. And this modernization, upgradation, and a complete overhauling of the infrastructure will be completed by the end of the FY21 primarily. So that's what is an important part as far as upgradation of IT infrastructure is concerned. Third big article is from the again, the Mint paper, the business paper. Now, this is saying the Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister, primarily invites US firms to manufacture in India. Now, the Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, was addressing the USIBC, that means US-India Business Council. And over there, Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister, clearly invited the business community, and he has given a very modest target of $500 billion as far as the trade ties or the investment ties between India and US. And we know this fact that recently only Amazon has made an announcement that they'll be manufacturing electronic equipment and electronic devices in India. So this shows the fact that US firms are more than eager to invest in India. And on the other side, India is providing a lucrative infrastructure, attractive destination, and of course, ease of doing business for the US firms as well, so that they can come in India, invest in India, make in India, and make for the entire world. So there's a strong pitch by the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and inviting the US firms to manufacture in India, and indeed, he was addressing this USIBC. The last news article is from DNA. Now, it is about the fresh guidelines by the Health Ministry for the international travels, for the international travelers amid the new COVID-19 variant scare. We know this fact that the government is aware of the fact that new strains have been found. The mutant variants have been found from countries like South Africa, Brazil, UK. And in that context, only these new SOPs have been put in place. It's a combined SOP, which were earlier, was issued by the government. So this SOP primarily says that all international travelers should carry a negative COVID report, and of course, under the Suvidha the airport Suvidha portal, their self-declaration should also be uploaded, and this COVID negative test should be of prior to 72 hours, and all the COVID protocols should be followed. So yes, so you can check all the Twitter handle of Ministry Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Over there, if in case you're planning for any kind of air travel, you'll get to know that what are the SOPs, and all the international travelers, specifically from UK, Middle East, if they are planning to travel to India, do check the Twitter handle of Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for all the detailed guidelines and SOP, for the airlines, for the passengers, and for the airports as well. So that's it. As far as the web news review is concerned, I mean, all these news articles are trending in all the major newspaper websites. But for other news, back to you, Preeti and Nancy.
Yes, the SOPs have been enlisted by the ministry there. We've also given the details of that earlier in the bulletin. Arun, thank you so much for joining us with that web review, in fact.
Absolutely. With that, let's shift focus now and move on. Take a look at all the sports news. Well, the 19-member strong Indian youth squad starts campaign at 30th Adriatic Pearl Boxing Championship. The Khelo India champion Ankit Narwal and the Asian Championship gold medalist Sanama Chachanu are leading the Indian charge. This is the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic the Indian youth team is participating at any international tournament. While the 2019 ASBC Asian Women Boxing Championships gold medalist T. Sanamacha will lead the women's charge for India. The 30th edition of the Adriatic Pearl Youth Tournament, which is starting late in the night today, will go on till the 22nd of this month. And with the presence of strong competition from 13 countries, including the boxing powerhouses such as Russia and Ukraine, the upcoming tournament will provide a good opportunity for Indian youth boxers to get into the much-needed match practice ahead of the IBA Youth World Boxing Championships, which is scheduled in Poland from 10th to 24th of April.
Umesh Yadav has been drafted into India's test squad for Ahmedabad leg of the England series, replacing Shardul Thakur, who has been released to play for Mumbai in the domestic 50-over Vijay Hazare Trophy. Yadav will undergo a fitness assessment at the NCA before linking up with Virat Kohli-led squad. If cleared, Yadav will join the fast-bowling group comprising of Ishant Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Siraj. The results of the next two tests are of great significance, not just for the ongoing series, but for the race to take on New Zealand in the final of the inaugural World Test Championship at Lord's in June.
And news now from the Australian Open, where top seed Novak Djokovic will take on Russian Aslan Kartasev in the men's singles semi-finals in the Australian Open today. And in the women's singles category, Serena Williams will lock horns with Japanese Naomi Osaka in the semi-finals. And earlier on, Rafael Nadal saw his bid for a 21st Grand Slam title end as Greek fifth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas fought back from 2 sets down to reach the Australian Open semi-finals. The Spanish second seed was stunned as Tsitsipas claimed a 3-6, 2-6, 7-6, 6-4, 7-5 victory in Melbourne. Tsitsipas will face Russia's Daniil Medvedev in Friday's semi-final. Karolina Muchova fought back to stun the world number 1 Ashley Barty at the Australian Open and reach her maiden Grand Slam semi-final. The Czech 25th seed defeated the home favourite Ashley Barty 1-6, 6-3, 6-2. Barty led by a set and a break but was unable to stop Muchova's comeback. Now, big serving Jennifer Brady staged a comeback victory over fellow American Jessica Pegula to book an Australian Open semi-final with Karolina Muchova. The 22nd seed finished strongly with a 4-6, 6-2, 6-1 win on the Rod Laver Arena and will now face Czech 25th seed Muchova.
Up next, we take a look at the health segment, where we get you a tip every day to make sure you remain in good health and spirits. Iron is an essential nutrient for hemoglobin and blood production. Iron-rich diet provides ample amount of iron for our body. And up next, we take a look at this report to know more about the role of iron in maintaining good health.
Iron is an important dietary mineral. It is needed for various bodily functions. Most of the body's iron is in the hemoglobin of the red blood cells. that transport oxygen in the body and is essential for providing energy for daily life. Extra iron is stored in liver and is used by the body when the dietary intake is too low.
When we take iron, it goes to our stores. Liver, bone marrow, etc. are the stores for iron. Here the iron gets stored, and whenever the hemoglobin level of body is less, then these stores they send iron to the blood circulation. It goes to bone marrow, and in bone marrow this iron is incorporated with proteins to make hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the most important thing which carries oxygen throughout our body, and it provides oxygen to each and every cell. So hemoglobin is so important. If iron is less, hemoglobin will be less. If a person is anemic, that means that hemoglobin is less. And once hemoglobin is less, it means that the iron stores are nil.
If the person does not have enough iron in the diet, the iron stores within the body become depleted. This can make the person feel tired, weak, and also lowers the immunity.
We have to supplement iron so that their hemoglobin is normal, and after their hemoglobin is normal, again we have to give them iron so that their stores are also full. If these babies are deficient in iron stores, they will in early infancy they will become anemic. So if we want the baby not to be anemic, we have to make the mother sufficient in iron. Diet which contains iron is green leafy vegetables and non-vegetarian sources. If iron deficiency has to be corrected, we have to look at worm infestation also, because the worms, they can also cause anemia, because they cause bleeding from the GI tract, from the gut.
Avoid taking iron supplements without doctor's advice. Having too much of iron in the body can be toxic. Taking vitamin C along with the iron-rich foods can help in better absorption of iron. But taking tea and coffee makes it harder to absorb. Take an iron-rich diet to increase your iron stores. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
We hope that was helpful in helping you taking good care of your health. With that, let's now move on, take a look at the history of the day, taking a look at the significance of this day in history.
On 18th February 1546, Martin Luther, leader of the Protestant Reformation, died in Eisleben, Germany. On this day in 1836, Ramakrishnan Paramhans, Indian mystic and yogi, was born in Hooghly district of West Bengal. He was inclined towards spirituality from a young age and was influenced by several religious traditions. In the year 1930, on 18 February, Pluto, the ninth planet in the solar system, was discovered by American astronomer Clyde W. Tombaugh at Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Aries. Pluto was later designated as a dwarf planet. On this day in 1946, Marines of the Royal Indian Navy revolted against the then British rule. On 18th February 2007, 68 people were killed and 12 others were injured when bombs were set off in two coaches of Samjhauta Express, a train running between Delhi and Lahore at Diwana near Panipat city of Haryana.
Up next, we get to a quick look at temperatures across major cities in the country. That brings us to the end of this edition of Breakfast News this morning. But before we go, we always leave you with a quick reminder. Remember, we are on a very decisive stage in the fight against COVID-19. We've been regularly showing you how fruitful has been the fight against COVID-19, but that does not mean that we sit back and relax. We still have to be cautious. Wear a mask, wear it correctly, and that is the crux, because that is the best way to keep yourself safe against COVID-19 in these times as well.
Absolutely, yes. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. And with that, it's time for us to wrap this edition of the Breakfast News. But before we go, we're leaving you with some very cute visuals today. And well, these are the glimpses of the female panda, Dindin. She's clearly having fun in Moscow while she seems to be happy while she was rolling off the mountain and doing some tricks in the snow. Take a look at those visuals. We wish you a great and a safe day ahead. Thanks for being with us.